Thank you. We tackle a fascinating and a highly complex love-hate triangle of Atmanirbhar Bharat, Chinese Atmanirbhar, and Trump's effort to rebuild Atmanirbhar America. These three nations, India, China, and United States, are among the most influential players in the global economy, and they are not only economic powerhouses, but they also drivers of global innovations, geopolitics, and culture. The relationship between these countries are complex, they are dynamic, and they are often fraught with tension. Today, we will discuss how each of these nations is approaching the concept of Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar, as we call it in India, but what it means for global balance of power, we will discuss. Let's take a moment to understand what we mean by Atmanirbhar. In today's interconnected world, it's a difficult proposition. It's impossible for any country to operate entirely in isolation. However, Atmanirbhar emphasizes building the capacity to produce critical goods, technologies, and services, do it by themselves while reducing their dependence, rather over-dependence on foreign sources. So while we are talking, you can continue to evaluate how India is doing on those grounds. The pandemic has clearly, starkly highlighted the vulnerabilities of global supply chain. Also, we saw when the giant ship Evergreen got stuck at the Suez Canal, we saw how the global supply chain can be deemed so fragile. Whether it was shortage of semiconductor or reliance on Chinese-made medical supplies, countries realized that importance of having their own domestic, indigenous, robust capabilities is so important. But then Atmanirbhar is not about economics. It's also about geopolitical leverage. It's about nation to nation cooperation. Therefore, a nation that controls its resources, whether it is mines and minerals and people, or developing technologies and industries, they have the ability to wield significant influence in international relations. And that is, again, a parameter to reflect. So, Chinese Atmanirbhar. Let's talk about that. China, as a nation, has mastered the art of Atmanirbhar in modern India. Over last 4 decades, starting somewhere in the 80s, 1978 to be precise, China systematically built its economy, infrastructure to support its economy, and innovative ecosystem to become a global superpower. And its journey, which began with Deng Xiaoping, the country embraced market reforms and opened to foreign investments. India has also done it, but then Chinese leadership were focused on learning from the West and adapting its methods and eventually surpassing its competitors. Fast forward to 2025, we see the results of that strategy. China is not only the world's largest manufacturer, but is a leader in fields like 5G technology. They are so ahead in this 5G technology that they have to be banned from the developed countries, developed Europe and United States. Their artificial intelligence is way ahead of time, and of course the green energy. It has become the factory of the world, and it is producing, we all know, everything from smartphones to solar panels. The latest statistics, what we discussed last week about the trade surplus of over $1 trillion, that is remarkable. And that's a consequence of these 40 years of journey to pursue Atmanirbhar. But China's success, it has its own controversy. There are human rights issues, there are environmental issues, there are issues of pollution, but they are tackling it at war footing. Much of its rise has come at the expense of other nations, particularly United States and Europe, the developed countries, because China has been offering low-cost manufacturing, and China has attracted industries away from the West, and it has faced, though, accusations of intellectual property theft and unfair trade practices, but that is just not deterring them. It has done massive investments in research and innovations. Developed countries, India, everybody else is way far behind in this race of research and development. China also controls the global supply chain, whether it is electronics, textiles, and rare earth metals. In fact, they have changed friends, they have changed geopolitics with Afghanistan and Africa in its ambit just to get rare earth minerals. And China has made itself indispensable. All this put together has helped China with geopolitical assertiveness, whether it is the Caribbean or the Panama Canal, as we hear these days, Africa, or to our Himalayan borders, or to Southeast Asia, including threats to Taiwan and Philippines. All this is coming out of its determined Atmanirbhar. India is a nation with immense potential, but it has a mixed record when it comes to Atmanirbhar. It started in 1947 after the independence, where the leaders then decided that self-sufficiency, at the time it was called, that is the only mantra to make India Sone ki Chidiya again. The forefathers of the nation embarked on that journey, but then this effort slightly lost its track, and in 1990s it opens the door to foreign goods and investments. It was an economic challenge at the time, but then it lost its commitment to Atmanirbhar. The result was that India was flooded with imports, particularly from China, which had undercut local industries, in the process stifled innovation. Everything from electronics to toys, even kites. India is a traditional practitioner of flying kites. Even the kites were made in China, and the Chinese product started to create a trade imbalance and flood the Indian market. Even with the real slogan of Aatma Nirbhar Bharat, which came by in 2014 with Make in India initiative, just to boost domestic manufacturing and attract foreign investments, this did not make much effect in the right direction. While India has been a hub for outsourcing and skilled laborers, it still relies heavily on the imports of critical goods like semiconductors, defense equipments, electronics from China or from the rest of the world. One glaring example that we are not able to leverage the Atmanirbhar strength are the F-16 fighter jets. Today, while India manufactures the components to these fighter jets, it's worth noting that US has still not sold F-16 fighter jets to India. And there are many F-16 fighter jets still flying with license of US in Pakistan. On the contrary, if you look at the bigger picture, India's entire Air Force defense strategy has been made in and around the capabilities and the firepower of F-16, whether it was Mirage, whether it was Jaguar, and now is it Rafale. So even while we are manufacturing F-16 fighter jets, which are sitting in our enemy country, still we don't own them. The third in this triangle is the latest entrant, Donald Trump 2.0. The United States wants to rebuild its greatness. The nation that once epitomized Atmanirbhar, self-sufficiency, but then it has found itself in the middle of the Chinese dominance. To make up for that, US has launched efforts to reclaim by the slogan called Make America Great Again. So as of 3 days, the Trump administration has signed executive orders which are consequential to India, to China, and that is where our Indian Atmanirbhar is being threatened. One of the policies is going to be about the tariffs. So India is one of the founding members of BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And this bloc seeks to challenge the domination of US dollar in the global market. And so this group had long proposed creating a trading community and even a shared BRICS currency, distinct from the dollar, to promote financial independence. Now this proposal represents a direct challenge and US's economic hegemony, a move Washington has consistently opposed with brutal force. So in response, the Trump administration is proposing a 100% tariff. That means India's exports will be with 100% tariff. 100% tariff for all the goods and services originating from BRICS nation. It is going to have a far-reaching implication for member countries including India. Indian information and technology industry currently generates approximately 150 billion, about 16 lakh crores Indian rupees in annual revenue. And this sector is the cornerstone of India's economic growth and global reputation. And it relies heavily on trade partnership with the United States. So therefore, a 100% tariff of such a magnitude would stifle India's export, and particularly in areas of technology and outsourcing. China is another major BRICS member, also in the crosshairs of Trump administration. But then China has an advantage over United States, so it might not get hit so hard. But then Trump 2.0 wants a tariff of approximately 35% on all Chinese goods. Like we discussed last week, the Chinese goods are now going to get diverted to other countries, and that is going to flood the Indian market with still cheaper Chinese goods in order to compensate for the US tariff of 35%. Overall, if you see the potential ripple effect of these tariffs would disrupt the broader BRICS vision and the Indian economy. We are so fragile and over-dependent on the US economy. Remember, it was the over-dependence on one economy which put India into slavery as a history. We are sitting on the edge now. The other executive order from Trump on the day of the inauguration was about the birthright citizenship. A brief about the citizenship. According to the 14th Amendment, anyone born in the United States automatically becomes a citizen. But now this policy is on hold. It is going to have significant implications for Indian migrants, Indian engineers, doctors, scientists who are sitting with H-1B visas in US. So every year, nearly 85,000 Indians, 65,000 generally and 20,000 educated in United States. They move to Americas on student visa and work visa to live there and to work there. And many of their children, if they are born in the US in another 5 years, the validity of the US H-1B visa, that is going to bring problem to the citizenship rights of those children. Indian workers are going to get affected. It's a detriment that the Trump government is now putting on India. The semiconductor is going to be the new oil. There are going to be battles. The battles are already on. The swords are already drawn. Whosoever becomes Atma Nirbhar in semiconductor is going to rule the world, because chips are going to empower fighter jets, smartphones, televisions, and anything you can call modern. Anything which is going to drive artificial intelligence. Currently, India is trailing behind, China is trailing behind, and so is United States. Only dominating country is Taiwan. Therefore, the semiconductor race is about global dominance. It's not about just the technology. So what are the lessons for India? Modi 3.0 is in direct contention with Trump 2.0 due to sharp controversies. Say example, Hindenburg report that brings Trump administration in direct conflict with Prime Minister Modi's close ties with Gautam Adani. And this dynamic is going to resurface sooner. Like I said, Trump may not be as tough with China as he looks towards India. And the indicators is that Trump had extended an invitation to Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, but then excluded Prime Minister Modi. Now, this decision highlights the evolving power dynamics between India and United States. Even though Indian media have been shouting from top of the roof, Modi supporting Trump's election victory. But that is not the case. Just a small reminder, Trump's forceful handling of India during early days of COVID-19 pandemic. If you remember, the Trump administration pressurized India into exporting hydrochloroquine drug to fight COVID-19. At the time, it was considered to be the medicine for COVID-19. This arm twisting happened just months after Mr. Modi had hosted Trump with a cheering crowd of 150,000 supporters at the stadium. The event then symbolized a strong Indo-US bond, but that was followed by action which only showed Trump's transactional approach to diplomacy and business of America. America First doctrine. Similarly, the so-called bromance between Mr. Modi and Chinese Premier Xi Jinping, often portrayed by our Godi media with meetings in Ahmedabad and in Mahabalipuram. Quickly, in 8 months of time, we saw Galwan Valley clashes, where India lost its soldiers. It only shows that in geopolitics, there are no friends. Indian Foreign Minister and Mr. Modi must have learned the lesson by now. So careful, Atmanirbhar is the only mantra that will give strength to India. But then India's geopolitical strategies relies again heavily on US support to counterbalance the military and the economic might of China. That leaves India susceptible to US arm twisting, particularly in areas of trade agreement and broader geopolitics. US will take its pound of flesh from the Indian economy by pushing its investments, its companies into India. So as the world navigates the turbulent waters of global economics and geopolitical dynamics, one truth emerges very clearly. The battle for self-sufficiency, self-reliance, Aatma Nirbhar Bharat, Chinese indigenous innovation, and America's to be great again revolution is not merely about trade or manufacturing. It is the battle for survival, a fight to secure a place in the shifting sands of global power. India has immense potential, but it stands on the cliff either for the greatness or for peril. We should stop digging the history. We should look into the future, as Trump 2.0 has shown with his commitment, with his aggression and enthusiasm on day zero of his presidency. The world races towards technological dominance and economic supremacy. If India has to remain unshakable, it has to see the future. It has a huge burden of internal inefficiency, internal fights, and of course there are external pressures from the global forces, from the neighbors up north, the Himalayas, and the west. The new one is coming up in the form of Bangladesh. Therefore, our strength, the Indian strength, lies in the unity of India. It lies on the skill set, on the education of India, and how far the current government is able to see in the future, formulate the policies and its doctrine of India first. There are no choices. It's matter of survival, as I said. With those words of caution, I thank you for tuning in today. Stay informed. See you next week again with more insight. Bye for now.